Hey guys, Mutantcowboy here. In this video, I want to talk about status effects and their place in PvP. Now, I know many players have a opinion about how skills or status effects especially should be, handled in PvP. But for all of those of you who are in this never skill category or never status effect kill category, whatever you may think, I want to point out the simple fact. The first game was self-described as basically combining a robust RPG customization with tactical action combat. And then when we went into the second game, they slightly changed their description, but basically it was a shooter RPG with campaign, co-op, and PvP modes. Obviously they simplified that a little bit, but the description of the game being a looter shooter is not correct, okay? It is not just a looter and it is not just a shooter. This game combines a lot of different things into one, and that is why many people like and enjoy the game. If you are not part of that category and you think this game should just be a shooter, well, there are other games out there for you. So stop with the all or nothing hissy fits and deal with it. This game is designed for more people than just one single narrow viewpoint. Alright, with that being said, many of you already know that I am a primary skill build. I'm mostly interested in using skill builds of various different types. Whether it's a shield build or whether it's a sticky build or seeker build, whatever. But I try to keep a very balanced viewpoint on this game. I do enjoy DPS builds. I do like fighting a wide variety of different builds. I don't want to just fight DPS builds as a skill build. I don't want to just fight skill builds as a DPS build. It gets kind of boring with that type of combat. And I like a wide variety of team combinations. It just feels good to play like that. But I don't think the problem is with the actual skills strength themselves. I don't think the problem is that, I don't think that the problem is people investing into these things fully. The problem I see is that there's no real active counters or no passive counters to these things that are actually effective in a real world situation. I just recently did try to make a 100% hazard protection build. I ended up getting 100% bleed resistance, 100% burn resistance, and 100% disrupt resistance. But still, the problem with that is, a lot of these skills still do massive amounts of damage even without the status effect. So unless I invest heavily into armor, I can easily be two-tapped by the firestarter chem launcher. If I get stuck in a bad situation and somebody tosses out one of those stinger hives, like that thing will, eat me to shreds, really quickly. And I have to run out of cover and, basically just flee for my life while, now I'm open to all sorts of, bullet damage and everything like that. And there's not a huge amount of things to do unless you specifically stack into every single counter just to, prevent this kind of damage. Currently you'd have to use EMP just to, kill the skills. But usually before you can use the EMP, you're already on a status effect. So then to stop the status effects, you have to invest into all this hazard protection. And then it basically becomes, now you have to basically, ruin a third of your build with hazard protection rolls. And then, of course, to get actual max hazard protection, you need to invest into basically the 3 brands that carry it. So that takes up all your 6 brand bonuses. And it's a mess. Now, I've seen a lot of people posting, angry comments and angry messages about how all this stuff should be removed and it shouldn't be in the game, or how they should bring back the immune station. But the problem with the immune station is it was a complete and utter negation of anyone's build. So if you invested into, a bleed build or, for example, like Predator, you couldn't do anything to somebody just because they were standing in a box. But that's part of the problem that I see in the game. They basically make skills fall into this certain bracket. And skills are only these, like mechanical objects that you can throw out and that's it. Now, if you've seen some of my videos, criticizing Division 2, I've relied heavily on going back to the E3 2013 trailer for the original vision of Division 1. And in that, if you looked at the skill tree, you could see this incredible variety of what a skill was. You didn't have specialization ammo, but you did have ammo that produced status effects. You didn't have all these different, unique grenades to your specialization, but you did have grenades that you could actually invest into or, basically unlock. And so grenades and bullets and different types of ability itself were part of the skill tree. And that's one of the biggest problems with this game and how it's so limited in its RPG aspect. It basically tries to narrow everything into the basically just the core aspects of what an RPG is. Okay, an RPG is status effects. Well, that's kind of true. But an RPG is a lot more than status effects. An RPG is a lot more than healing. Okay, there's all sorts of different facets to an RPG that this game just doesn't do well. For example, there are no self-buff abilities really. I mean, you can use a shield to, soak up some damage. You can use a pulse to, see other targets. But you can't use like a temporary ability that reduces status effects on you by, like 50%. Or, let's say you're at skill tier 6, it reduces status effects by 100% for, like 20 seconds or something. There's no abilities like this. But that's part of the problem with the game. They don't really have buff skills or, debuff skills. You can't cast out something that reduces the enemy's damage by, 20 or 50% for, 5 or 10 seconds. They don't have anything that reduces damage, from status effects on you by this amount. So, I mean, if you are a DPS build, I mean, you're basically stuck with a lot of skills that really don't fit your playstyle. And they're even weaker because you don't actually invest into skill tier. So anything that's actually interesting to you as a DPS build doesn't really work very well because skills just aren't very good for you. And anything that might be, good for like a hybrid build aren't good because you can't actually invest into them enough to actually make them beneficial to that type of build. But the two main clearly identifiable problems in the game are that the oversimplified system has basically limited any type of actual build variety that allows you to do things with a competent build. If you actually want to have a status defense build, you need to invest so much into this crappy status effect, reduction stuff that you will get floored by any good team composition. This goes back, a couple months ago when, they started talking about all these gear changes that they're going to introduce. I basically said that this was going to be bad, this was not going to be good, this is not going to be fun, this is going to be boring and overly simplified. But one of the things that I said was that you cannot put stats in direct competition with each other if they don't actually compete with each other. And that goes, with weapon handling. No one's using weapon handling because it's a terrible shit stat. And guess what? Everyone's going to either choose headshot damage or one of the crit stats because those are actually effective. I actually went out and I used all 6 freaking slots for weapon handling. You know what happened? Pretty much jack shit. Nothing. It was terrible. Okay, weapon handling is garbage. Just like, some of these brand sets with accuracy and stability on them. They're trash. Why would you use these? Like, no one is using some of these 2 and 3 piece sets because they are terrible. And that's exactly why we're seeing the rise of, like the contractor gloves and the Fox Prayer knee pads. Because those ones actually provide a very tangible benefit. And of course, if you look at the Sokolov gloves, I don't even remember what the name of them is off the top of my head right now. But they literally give you 0.5% more status effect over the base status effect. Whereas, something like the Fox's Prayer knee pads gives you 15% damage to targets out of cover. I mean, you can't get some insane increase like that anywhere else. But, the one that you can get on regular gear is only improved by 0.5%. I mean, that right there just shows you how terrible, like, the development team is at, like, balancing these things or at least looking at the effectiveness of some of this stuff. It's ridiculous, terrible garbage. But that just goes further into the fact that they did a very terrible job of balancing this game. They did a very terrible job of actually keeping track of what things are going to happen. So yes, status effects are incredibly strong right now. And, if you're not investing anything in armor, I mean, look, that's kind of your fault. I mean, if you were getting one tap by everything, and you're not investing in armor, that's not the game's fault. I mean, that's the way that it's kind of designed. Where you could have 1.8 million armor versus, a regular base of 660,000, of course, you need to have this wide range of skill damage to actually keep skills effective because, if you are a full armor build and, a skill is just tickling you, then it basically makes skills irrelevant. And look, if you were going up against a full, completely spec'd glass cannon, gun build and they, basically just dropped you in half of a second, like, what are you going to say? Like that it's unfair that happens, and time to kill should be increased, and then of course everyone starts dancing, and then time to kill should be decreased. It gets into this incredibly stupid battle where basically it ends up revealing that you have no idea what you're talking about. So to say that skills should be removed from the game just because you don't like them is baloney. But there should be ways and mechanics to actually stop the effectiveness of these builds. Whether that means they include some sort of talent, like whenever you get affected by a status effect, you become immune to all status effects for 10 seconds, and it has a cooldown of like 20 seconds or 30 seconds or something, right? or they put a new different skill in the game, something that's more of like a self buff. So you cast it and you gain like 10% hazard protection for every skill tier, something like that, or even some sort of team buff, or like they add some sort of different modifier to the booster hive, for example. Obviously, I don't think they should just give you a flat, here's a healing circle and you're immune to everything when you're in it. That's a little bit too much, because that simple addition would basically just remove all counterplay in the game. You use this and then you can't do anything against it, right? So that kind of thing does not need to be in the game. You do not need a 100% all the time immunity just forever, right? If you drop something and you're immune, that's a little bit extreme. But there does need to be some sort of mechanic itself that gets put into the game. But that's all I wanted to say, guys. I mean, I understand fully what a lot of DPS players are talking about with these status effects. Yes, they are insane right now. And yes, some of these skills are just doing an insane amount of damage. And if you're not investing fully into this stuff to, counter it, you are basically just going to die repeatedly over and over again to this stuff. And there's nothing you can really do in the game to stop that. I really want to know where the actual original massive Division 1 team went. The ones that were actually responsible for the E3 2013 trailer, the ones that made that game. I want them back, not this motley crew of weirdos that they have now. Alright guys, that'll do it for me. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.